the former President Rafael Correa closed down the US airbase at Manta. It was seen as a landmark decision to reassert Ecuador's independence. Now, the government of Lenin Moreno has agreed to open a security cooperation office with the United States. So why now, and what does it mean? To talk about this, we're happy to have with us the renowned Mexican intellectual Ana Esther Ceceña. She's the coordinator of the Latin American Observatory on Geopolitics. But first, let's take a look at this short video.
The Ecuadorian Ministry of Defense has announced the establishment of the new Security Cooperation Office in Ecuador. The ministry was careful to stress that the new entity would not violate the country's constitution, which was amended under former President Rafael Correa to ban the permanent presence of foreign troops in Ecuador.
Referente al pronunciamiento del ministro de Defensa.
The announcement made by the Ministry of Defense was a surprise for us. We didn't know anything about it. We are open to dialogue with any other country, not only the United States, but any other country to reinforce security measures at the border.
The Defense Ministry also says that there will be a special plane that will fly between Ecuador and the United States, which will be used to gather and share intelligence. It will stay for 3 or 4 days and then return. The ministry stressed it doesn't mean that a new military base is being established.
We are talking about an airplane that will gather special information. The airplane staff will have to sleep in a specific place. I don't think they will stay in a hotel. Most likely, they will stay in an Ecuadorian military base.
This decision comes after US Vice President Mike Pence's visit in June. Decisions taken included not only discussions regarding expanded US security assistance and commercial ties, but also consideration of a possible future bilateral trade agreement between the two countries.
Thank you for your time, Ana Esther. I think there's maybe been some exaggeration on both sides about exactly what the Ecuadorian and United States governments have agreed. So let's start with that. What have they agreed to and what have they not agreed to?
We don't know exactly what they have agreed because the convenium they made, it's confidential. We don't know it. People is asking to know it, and it's very difficult because it's there is only some statement from the Minister of Defense, and that's all we know. But we know they were many intents of research the relationship between these two countries, and the U.S. ambassador has been declaring many things. He says the relationship between Ecuador and the United States is in the best moment. They are doing many things. They are arranging every day some new accord, and there are some security accords, some presence accords, not a military base, as many people said, but really that's because the constitutions prohibited.
The Constitution of 2008, which says it's not allowed to have foreign troops on Ecuadorian soil.
It's not allowed, but you know, a military base can be in earth, but in land, but also can be in a plane, in a ship, in many places. And I think in this moment, in this very moment, they are going to have a military base in Ecuador in the place of a plane in an airport, and it's a itinerant military base.
But this is what we think might happen, or what you think might happen, but
No.
we don't know that yet.
No, but the Ministry of Defense have said that. There's a plane with an intelligence equipment and all that it's needed to do the same things they have done in Manta base. Then it's a military base.
They actually made the comparison with the Manta base?
Yes, he has made that comparison, and I think it could be even better than Manta base because technology has advanced, and but it's the function they have in Manta was mainly intelligence monitoring and that kind of tasks, and it's the same they are planning to do with that plane. It's a reality. It's not. I'm not supposing. It's what they have declared. Both the U.S. ambassador and the Ministry of Defense from Ecuador.
The Ministry of Defense did talk at the beginning of August about an agreement to set up a joint cooperation office for security. What is that?
He said it's already working, that office. And what's that? It's supposed to be an office to monitorize questions about narcotics, trafficking of narcotics, and also to share information, security information. It's a kind of, in Panama they used to have a center, an intelligence center, to gather all the information from Latin America, wherever from Latin America. And then after they have left Panama, they put that activities in Manta. Just that was the kind of activities they had in Manta. And now this office they are installing seems to be for the same things.
So when you say the same things, I mean, the official version is always about combating narco-trafficking, drug trafficking.
Narco-traffic and...
but we've seen before, many on the left in Latin America for a decade, 2 decades or more, have always felt that the issue of drug trafficking was often, if not always, a pretext for other kinds of security operations. I mean, we saw the base in Manta being used for the attack on the FARC base at the beginning of the Correa presidency, for example. I mean, do you believe it's about drug trafficking?
No, they talk about transnational criminals, transnational threats, and they are. This is the main proposal, I think, in that office, because they recognize there are transnational networks of crime, something like that, and you can say Maduro is one of the members of that. They say that. It's not me. Yes, they say that in some documents. When they talk about some kinds of transnational networks of crime, they talk about President Maduro as one point of one of that networks that are threatening the hemispherical security. Then that's the proposal. To go against that kind of networks.
So who is actually mentioning Maduro? Where does that come?
It's a document of, I think it's quoted in a statement of the Southcom
From the US Southern Command.
office, yes.
Right. So, but why is this happening now? I suppose that's the question. You know, why? I mean, what led up to this? I mean, it appeared that this talk of security cooperation really took off after those bombings in Esmeraldas at the beginning of the year. Then there were the kidnappings and the murders of the journalists and the couple. What is that? What was behind it?
Some people says that the bombs in Esmeraldas were a theater to allow the entrance of the security forces from Colombia and from the United States. It's a possibility. It's a hypothesis, like others. And it's just the moment, because they need to strengthen the threat over Venezuela, because Venezuela is not going down. Venezuela is resisting, and they want that petroleum. No, the oil that Venezuela has is too much to waste it.
But what could be Ecuador's role in that kind of scenario for the United States?
Well, Ecuador is one piece, one very important piece, very little, very small, very fragile, very manipulable, and is the little piece that were lacking in the Pacific corridor, yes, and I think the position is very important, because Manta was really a very strategic base when it was there, and now they are insisting in installing some other points in Ecuador. I think it's maybe the perspective that Ecuador has over the Amazonical basin, and it's also a political bet, because Ecuador has been a very Pacific country, and then even a Pacific country as Ecuador is trying to push Maduro with the migrants policies, with the leaving Alba and going into the Lima group. There are many pieces that are diplomatically, politically, maybe also that perspective, that spatial perspective, and I think it's a kind of isolation policy. It's a regional proposal to build some military network, a military control network in the Caribbean and in the Amazonian basin. And then Ecuador is important there.
So, I mean, because when Mike Pence was in Brazil, and I think when Mattis, the defense secretary, was also in Brazil, they were talking about Alcantara, yeah?
Yes,
the space base in Amazonia. Is that part of this network, of this system?
Yes, of course. It's Alcantara, it's Tabatinga in the
Right on the triple frontier, yeah, between
that's it.
Colombia, Brazil,
and then the other bases that are encircling Venezuela, and it's a kind of invasion, but an external invasion, an external frontier to to don't allow Venezuela to have relations, commercial relations, to work with his alimentarian problems.
But do you think the objective of this is really military, in the sense that there is a military plan, or is it more political pressure that comes with that military presence?
About Ecuador?
Venezuela? No, I mean this network is the.
It's a military, a political, mediatic. Medias are working so hard in that war, and it's many things. The military policy in the United States now goes over a concept that it's the full spectrum dominance, and full spectrum
What does that mean? Explain that concept, because it's one of those concepts that people use a lot. I don't think most people understand what it means. What does it mean?
Full spectrum is very important because they have understood that, for instance, in Vietnam, they could win technically a war, but they couldn't win it because they didn't work with the minds of Vietnamese. No? They couldn't work with culture. They didn't know how the people were thinking. And since then, they are working on another kind of approach to the peoples. And they know they have to change culture. They have to go through media, through the television, to go with music, with language, with many things to change the common sense, to install another common sense, to go after that with some military approach. Because you can't win the war if you don't do that. You can't win the war if you go in the first place with guns, because everybody is going to reject that.
I mean, just this last week or 2 weeks, we've seen a lot of media coverage in the international media of the so-called, migration crisis out of Venezuela. How does that fit into this, do you think?
That's the same. It is in the same package, I think. To convince the world that there is a humanitarian crisis, very, very important in Venezuela, justifies the intervention. Then all the other Latin American countries must save people in Venezuela because the humanitarian crisis is very bad, and it's a way to do war, but not because of war, but because of salvation, because of
it's the old humanitarian intervention of the 1990s.
And they are preparing that. They are. When I say they, is the United States, of course. No, they are trying hard to go over Venezuela, and they haven't. Could till now, and they are trying to move many things to build a possibility to go inside. One thing they did a month ago, I think 3 weeks ago, was to install some white helmets in Colombia to in the frontier to justify the humanitarian salvation policy there. And why just in Colombia? Why not in Venezuela too? In Venezuela, people are suffering, and white helmets are a kind of international force, peace force, and we know peace forces are not so peaceful, no? But it's one of the things they are doing to try to build a complete theater with media working, with Helmut's working, with...
But how successful do you think this media theatre
I think
has
all
been,
over the
is
world, all over the world, everybody says, poor Venezuelans. We have to save them. They are going out from his country, from their country, because they don't have anything to eat. Kind of Africa. I remember Africa when they say that, and I think it's working in the global common sense, no? Not maybe in the regional common sense, but is justifying, yes, some policies, some military security policies. In Brazil, for instance, the frontier between Venezuela and Brazil has now many operations, security operations from Brazilian forces, no? Because they are attempting against the security of Brazilian people, no? And then there is a closed frontier around Venezuela with many different ways, no, of
But you say you don't think it's being so successful in Latin America. Do you see signs of resistance, of people rejecting that narrative in other parts of Latin America, in Ecuador, for example?
In Ecuador, yes, I think. In Ecuador, there are many people that doesn't like the huge presence, the increasing presence of the United States. They were very convinced about what the Revolución Ciudadana did in this subject.
It was a popular move, wasn't it? When Correa got rid of the Manta base, that was hugely popular, I believe, in Ecuador.
Oh yes, it was great. It was great. It was politically a very important point.
But even if people are unhappy, there doesn't seem to have been a lot of protests. You know, the level of opposition seems to be quite sort of muted.
It's a very difficult moment in Latin America, I think. There are many, they are kicking everywhere in different ways. No? They are fighting by the way of juridical
using the courts and legal processes, yes.
But against presidents, but against social movements. Those countries are increasing the repression policies. It's not so easy, and I think it's not. It's always that people is a little confused about what is the goal we are fighting for.
What is the goal of the Ecuadorian government now? Because I mean, is all this just the result of pressure from the United States? I mean, there've been, the move, leaving Alba, apparently leaving or trying to take back the building of UNASUR. Very harsh comments from Lenin Moreno about Nicaragua and Venezuela. What is the Ecuadorian government trying to do?
Assange, for instance.
And indeed, and Assange. What is the Ecuadorian government trying to do? Where is it trying to position itself?
I have read many things about the links between Lenin Moreno and the oligarchy, Guayaquilian oligarchy of Ecuador. And many people says that Lenin Moreno is a piece of that group, no? That oligarchian group. It's possible, and that oligarchian group, I think, is well with neoliberalism, open frontiers, no taxes, all that kind of policies, and also to control wages, to don't waste money in public health, in public education, etc. Everything is going a business thing, no? A business item. And I think, I don't know, I always say it's very strange that Alianza País has, Alianza País fight for Lenin Moreno, and then Lenin Moreno is against all all what Alianza País was in that moment. No? I don't know, there are some dark points there, but the relationship between Lenin Moreno, his group, with the American embassy is reality from the first moment of this government. And I think there surely had many links before they go to power, no? Before Lenin Moreno arrived to the presidency, because it's impossible to think they have not prepared that before they assume.
But just to finish, because we're running out of time, how successful do you think this attempt to reassert US hegemony in the region, in Ecuador and more broadly in the region, will be? Are there still real obstacles